Chapter 4. Bonding, Attachment and Intimacy. The phenomenon of bonding, absent in Jane's rejection of her child, is a vital event in the life and psychological development of the newly born. Consider bonding to be the reconstitution of the mother-child link. It could be vital to the healthy development of the child during the second stage of its development, in the 9 months it takes the central nervous system to complete its development. At the same time, the right brain also continues to develop. This is important because, as we saw in Chapter 2, the right brain is the location of the interpersonal skills of empathy, sympathy and affection. It is well established that the right brain functions do not develop when a baby is not adequately cared for, which is another way of saying that the bonding process did not happen or was limited. I think it is the absence of this bonding that determines the development of what Maslow calls deprivation psychology. This is a psychology based on the need for self-preservation, a psychology which has at its heart fear, anxiety and misery, the great triad of anger and grief, which are at the heart of so many human problems. Although I had identified fear, anger and grief as major components of human misery, it took me a long time to begin to question why they were so powerful. I imagined myself being an unborn embryo, feeling safe and secure, floating in amniotic fluid, and getting on with my development quite happily. I did not enjoy being born, and without knowing it, my future development depended on whether I continued to feel safe and secure, knowing that I would be fed, kept warm, and that she would always be there if I got into trouble. But what if I found that she might not be there when I was cold or hungry or in pain? And I could die if nobody came. I might then become very frightened, miserable and angry, and I would then make the loudest possible noise in the hope that someone would hear me and save my life. If nobody came then, but came later, I would do the best I could to get myself looked after. I would bury my fear because I would find that the more I cried, the more upset she would become, and she would shout at me, which would frighten me even more. I was particularly sensitive to the way I was treated during the second 9 months of my development, because it would not be until then that I would begin to be able to move under my own steam. A completely imaginary scenario, but I have found that it was only by putting myself in the place of the newly born that I began to understand the reasons for these most powerful of emotions. It seems to be becoming increasingly recognized that intimacy is a prerequisite for the possession of a healthy psyche and, incidentally, a healthy immune system. But there is disagreement among psychologists on a definition. I think the close relationship between mother and baby could be called intimate, and the closeness of this relationship ensures that the newly born feels safe and secure. It allows the child to grow without fear. It seems to me that the experience of adult intimacy carries with it the feeling of everything being all right, a re-experiencing, perhaps, of an initial recognition of the newborn that life will continue. If this is true, then the experience of intimacy is a reinforcement of the original bonding experience, and perhaps this is vital for our experience of happiness.